Manchester City 3, Leeds United 2. Mark Donaldson and Janusz Michalek. And at halftime, Janusz, I have to be honest, I didn't know how we were going to get 20 minutes chat out of what was looking like a very routine Manchester City win in a game that they were expected to win comfortably. God bless Leeds United. What a game they made of it in the second half. However, it was too little for them because Phil Foden scored early and scored late, and City win it 3-2. What did you make of City's performance before we get into the minutiae of the game?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to appreciate the level of charity Manchester City has given Leeds in this game. As you know, in the first half, as you rightfully said, I mean, Leeds had absolutely nothing, zero, zilch, nada, zero. I mean, there was nothing to talk about, maybe with the exception of 5 minutes after the first minute goal. And that's important, that first City goal, because it wasn't the first minute, right? It was sort of I don't want to say old school, but a beautifully organized and combined goal for Phil Foden. And then, you know, you get the second and 25th minute and you say to yourself, done and dusted, right? Normally, Mark, in the good old days when City were outstanding, this is probably 4 or 5-0 game. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I thought. So, I mean, there was nothing wrong with Manchester City in the first half, in absolute control, total control of the game. And then normally you think that they run it out, but they've made it very, very difficult for themselves.
Why the charity now? Why do they allow teams back in it? Why do they concede goals? They concede one to Burnley. They concede and they give hope to opposition. That never used to be the case. So why now?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to you know what I'm going to say right now, because, you know, City are in a pretty good position, right? At the end of the day, they've won 3-2. And, you know, I look at the table right now, and as great as Arsenal have been, I mean, sensational. Here's City, right? 4 points behind, not even playing close to their best. But this is it. This is playing close to their best. I've just felt that for a while now, even this season, like City are dying a slow death. City and Pep, it's just, I don't know. I mean, what's going to happen when there's so much talent? I'm skeptical sometimes to say what I've just said, right? Because I can pay the price for that very, very easily, because that talent can come good. But it just, right? I mean, it doesn't seem there's the energy, doesn't seem there's that joy, doesn't seem, that they have capacity to sort of hound teams down in games like these, or just recover the ball, all the things that we've said before. And you know, before it gets better, I don't know. I mean, I still think that City need a massive reset. Haven't said that again. 4 points behind Arsenal. That's pretty good.
100%. And they haven't been great. And they're still in a position that 18 other teams in the Premier League would love to be in. Now, Leeds United today with nothing to lose at halftime. The game's lost. They've got two options. It's either damage limitation, or it's, you know what, have a goal, put them under pressure, maybe see if they're going to be complacent and think the game's won. And for Daniel Farke, who there's been a lot of speculation about this week, is he on the verge of losing his job? For me, the Leeds United players in the second half, they might not have got anything out of this game, but that was something that shows they're still playing for their manager and there's still pride in that team.
Yeah, but that's crushing, isn't it? Right away, losing 2-0. I hear what you're saying, but as a player, they've got to be thinking, my goodness, 91st minute, it's 2-2. We came back from 2-0 down against a team like Manchester City away. Yeah, they'll get something out of it, but I think psychologically it's unbelievable. Look where they are. I mean, still, before this game was third from the top against third from the bottom. That would have gotten them, out of there somehow. I watched the Sunderland game too. They were losing at home 2-0. They ended up winning 3-2. So it is crushing. I mean, the reaction was there for Daniel Farke, no questions about that. And you got to give him credit because at halftime, obviously, he made two substitutions, changed the system by adding an extra center back, and brought in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who not only scored, but he was the one fouled by Joško Gvardiol for the penalty as well. So everything he did at halftime, he recognized. The players paid back for that for sure. But in the end, I can't. I think we all like Daniel Farke to a degree, right? But I can't think back to Norwich and now Leeds, and same story. Excellent in the championship, brings them back. But that's the reality of Leeds, right? That hard grind. I mean, they've started the season well enough, and we often see that from promoted team. And there comes the reality check right about now, where you're fighting relegation until the end of the season. And here we are with Leeds, it seems.
And the next two, Chelsea and Liverpool. So you go into this game today, you go into Chelsea and Liverpool in their next two, and the likelihood is they're probably not going to take anything from them. They might get a draw in one of them, but that's not the time to make a decision on Daniel Farke's future, is it? Because after that, they play Brentford, they play Palace, and they play Sunderland. So for that
Sure.
Brentford game, is Daniel Farke still the manager of Leeds
Yeah, I
United?
mean, there's going to be a panic, button sometimes, right? If the next two big games they lose, I mean, look where they are, right? So two ways of thinking that. If you trust the manager and the players still believe in him, you want to reward that, right? And you want him to keep going. But there's so much money involved as well, and Leeds United are, for all intents purposes, a yo-yo club, right? You start to panic. So I'm afraid this may happen. I don't wish him that, but as I mentioned, there's a history with Daniel Farke in terms of that happening. And if they don't get a win or two very, very quickly, he's going to be gone. It's as simple as that.
Manchester City, on the back of that disappointment in midweek against Bayer Leverkusen, Haaland didn't start and they didn't really do enough. 2 goals from Grimaldo and Schick, giving Leverkusen the 2-0 win. If you're a City fan right now, and you've already spoken about them, you see that game against Leverkusen, but you also see games against Liverpool and how they've played better against better sides. Then you've got that win today, which should have been comfortable and ended up being, they just got there. How are you feeling right now as a City fan?
Deceptive. I think if I were a City, fan, I'd still think what I said a little bit earlier, that we've got to come good at some stage. We're in a good position while not playing well. Already lost, 4 games as well. Defensively, question marks, right? I mean, they concede a lot more than they have in the past when they were at their best as well. Obviously, we can always talk about Rodri coming back. You still think that somebody like Mateo Kovacic, right? I mean, could be an important part of that midfield. That midfield used to run Manchester City. Rodri by himself to a degree, but Kovacic was always good for a couple of games, either coming off the bench or starting. He's got that machine-like sort of game, right, where he can add defensively, shield the back 3 or 4, however they play. But obviously, Kovacic has the ability to kind of drive you forward and score from time to time as well. So you have certain players that haven't been at their best, as I've mentioned. So I guess if you Manchester City, you say to yourself, there is hope. There's absolute hope because we're that close. And the only reason I say that, because I mean, I look at Arsenal and they are a machine by themselves. They haven't put a foot wrong just yet, for the most part. And City are just 4 points behind. And obviously, Arsenal have to play Chelsea. So who knows where that goes. But even if they win, 7 points is something where City would feel that's still within reach.
Given the players that they have, are Manchester City better or worse than the sum of their parts?
I mean, the bar that they put up there, Mark, themselves for so many years, it's so high that it's very difficult, to look at this team and say to yourself, this is it. Those ways are coming back. That's why deep down, just quietly, just feel that there's a reset. We know Pep Guardiola signed a new contract. He's going to be here for another 2 years, but they've got to be, and they better be thinking about kind of, resetting this a little bit, right? And they have done it. They've bought players and all of that, but I just think that they're not as driven, and I don't see the joy on their faces. But most importantly, I don't see the joy in their play, right? I mean, when was the last time we talked about Pep Guardiola? When we're talking about Arteta, his disciple, we're talking about different ways he sets them up. We're sort of quiet on Pep Guardiola, as if that spark has gone. We saw that last season. We thought this reset was now, and fair play. It's much, much better. I don't want to say Pep is reborn, but he, the way he acts, it almost seems like, yes, he's ready for that challenge once again. I don't know if I see it. Not yet.
Phil Foden with 2 goals today. He's a delight to watch when he's in top form, and he's had injury issues. Obviously, there's There's the England conundrum. If he's fully fit and playing well, should he start for England? When everything we've said about how Manchester City were better than how Manchester City are now, Kevin De Bruyne is the one player, the one constant that they have missed. And obviously last season, coming towards the end of his City career before moving on to Napoli, he wasn't at his best. Is there anything you can do if you're Pep Guardiola to set your team up in a similar fashion to the way he did when Kevin De Bruyne was in form and have Phil Foden playing that role? Could that work? Do they have the supporting cast to do so?
No, because I mean, Phil Foden is totally different than Kevin De Bruyne in the way they play, right? That's the conundrum. The conundrum is in England, obviously, because Thomas Tuchel sees him as clear, kind of number 10, and we're talking Morgan Rogers, who's on fire, and even Jude Bellingham, who also plays in that position. At least Tuchel thinks that's his best position, which, by the way, I agree, and he doesn't start. So for Phil Foden, I think Pep Guardiola is going to continue to use him as he always has, and that's just about everywhere, on the right side and left side, being central. But yeah, that width is not there. The ability of Kevin De Bruyne, there isn't a player that can replicate that right now. It's not just Kevin De Bruyne, but the role, for example, Ilkay Gundogan has played, or David Silva in the past, right? That's a little bit different in between the lines. The creators that don't necessarily need to hold on to the ball. Which, by the way, getting back to Phil Foden, he's that kind, right? If you look at his goals, he likes to go with people. He likes to dribble. That winner was superb through a sea of legs as well. But this is a player that feels most comfortable with the ball at his feet. So, right there, you don't have that. Bernardo Silva, still wonderful for his age, but he's nowhere near his best. So, yeah, there isn't a player, the distributor, the driver through the middle. We thought that Reinders was going to be that player. Started the season very, very well, but has struggled as of late. So perhaps with him, maybe, just maybe. But I just think that defensively, there's still issues, right? We have questions in terms of, if you remember Kyle Walker, the way he drove that team on the right-hand side, in terms of width. I still think of Ziyech till this day. One of the players that probably at that time we talked about the least, but he was so important keeping the width and allowing others to create the game down the middle and in those little alleys that Manchester City were so wonderful in. So, this team is missing one or two key players, and then there's Rodri, and we don't know if he ever comes back to the level he was before.
Erling Haaland today. Now, there's millions of people that play Fantasy Premier League all over the world, and a lot of them triple captained Erling Haaland today, and he didn't score. So what did Pascal Struijk and Joe Rodon do so well today? Because he hardly had a sniff.
Yeah, again, it's about delivery. I've been down that road with you and with everybody else. And, one game he doesn't score, he gets 10 touches. He's got one shot on target, and he doesn't contribute enough, right? The next game, he scores 2 or 3 goals. He's a finisher. You've got to deliver the ball to him. You got to deliver the ball to him early if you can. With Leeds United, it was always difficult, right? With most teams, it's always difficult. So I don't think, I've stopped judging this man, because what he does is incredible, right? That's what you pay for. He scores goals at will on any team, in any competition, and I've made peace with the fact that he sometimes doesn't contribute in games. I think Erling Haaland is probably the last person we need to talk about here, because obviously we know his strengths. His teammates know his strengths, and they got to find a way to find him, and he'll do what he's asked to do from his manager.
This isn't at all about having a go at Erling Haaland. This is simply a question.
Well, I have in the past.
No, understandably so, when he's deserved it. Today, he didn't get the service, but I wanted to accentuate the positive of the Leeds centre-backs in what they did, because just because you don't get the service, that's not to say that the defenders haven't played well against them, and I thought they marshalled them superbly today.
Yeah, no. I talked about that. I talked about that charity. Forget him. Look. Mateus Cunha goes out of his way twice. He makes a mistake. He makes sure that Leeds United scores, right? That first goal. Concedes a reverse pass in the midfield, then recovers, fair play to him, right, to get back. And then he just puts it on a platter for Calvert-Lewin instead of clearing that, right? Then after that, it's another I mean, Joško Gvardiol, I mean, how bad was that foul? I don't even know what they were trying to complain about. I mean, it's terrible. It's two gifts, as I've said before. If I'm Pep Guardiola today, I am 10 times more mad today than I was against Newcastle and Leverkusen, right? I mean, as you know, this is 2-0 after 25 minutes against a poor team. Let's be honest here. In the past, this is a 4-5-0. And that's that. That's not Erling Haaland. That's just a team making massive mistakes, not to take anything away from Leeds, but I mean, they've earned it. But I think you know what I mean. In the first half, if you watch closely Leeds United, I mean, there was nothing. They had zero idea, not even a half a chance, right? And when you play Manchester City, that should have been done and dusted. And Erling Haaland is the last one that I'm going to look at.
The season of goodwill and thoughtfulness has clearly bypassed the Mihalik household.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Thanksgiving's done. And no one's getting anything from Janish. Width-wise for City, there's a lot of them. But consistency, Janish, when you've got a run of games, you're playing, you're starting, you're playing well, then it's easy. But midweek, front three, Savinho, Marmoush and Ball. Today, Haaland starts, of course, but the width, Doku, Silva to an extent. There's a lot of similar players there, but they're all kind of bit part players. That can't help when it comes to creativity on a regular basis, can it?
No, Pep's gotten soft, right on that. I think he admitted that, all those changes against Leverkusen was a mistake. Look, this is the season. Phil Foden saved Manchester City season right now. You're probably looking at it. I didn't have time to look at it, but, this is the season, their season until the end of the year, because it's a pretty soft schedule. If I look at Manchester City, when I say soft, with all due respect to everybody, but in terms of the big matches right now, you'd imagine a team like Manchester City is going to go on the run. In order for that to happen, Pep Guardiola knows that he has to play his best. He's got to go back a little bit in those games that matter, to go back to the 13, 14, maybe 15 players that he uses. Champions League is not the end of the world. That was the first game they've lost. They'll find themselves in January, February, they'll be there, right? Just a question. Maybe not top 8, who knows? But they'll find a way. But right now, concentration on the Premier League. This is the time. If they run the table until the end of December, which they're capable of against the opposition that they play against, then we may have a little bit of a race, right? Because Arsenal, again, playing wonderfully. There's always going to be that spell for that 1 or 2 games, where they may not get a win or two. There's also Chelsea in it. I truly believe that if Manchester City runs the table for the most part until the end of the season, we're going to have a decent race in the end.
Let's look at their fixtures between now and the end of the year. It's Fulham away and it's Sunderland at home. It's Palace away, it's West Ham at home, it's Forest away, and then it's Sunderland away. Those are games that City should be winning every single one of them. That takes you up until the 1st of January, and then it's Chelsea coming to the Etihad on the 4th. There can be no excuses. Now, the problem is, if they win all those games, if Arsenal are to win at Chelsea tomorrow, City could still find themselves trailing come that 4th of
but you take that. If you trail by a point or 2 or 3, right, then, I can flip that. Not that I want to, but, remember Arsenal, when it comes to it, comes March, April, May, they have a history of collapsing as well, right? So listen, again, we're talking about pretty epic run from Arsenal in all aspects. Europe here, not conceding, scoring on set pieces, scoring a lot of goals. I mean, everything is going their way. There's going to come a time where it won't. So if Manchester City are within a point or even 3, when we come to January, you take that, because now, the experience of Manchester City, maybe the nerves that come to Arsenal or even Chelsea, if they're in it, they're very much inexperienced, a very young team right there. So you know how that is. Sir Alex Ferguson had a certain quote about that, right? City know how to deal with that. Arsenal hasn't proven that they do just yet. So run the table now, stay within touch, whatever that may be, even if you're a point or 2 or 3 behind. Matter of fact, it's probably better to be a little bit behind because you're putting that pressure on Arsenal. So again, there's a lot of ifs in there, but seeing the way City are playing, and as I've said, it's not perfect anywhere near that. We're talking, what's today, 4 points, right? Obviously, Arsenal can go back to 7, and that's a bigger problem. But that's what I meant. I mean, the goal in 91st minute by Phil Foden was a season-saving goal for Manchester City in terms of a title chase.
And what happens if City hit top form?
Well, you don't want me to repeat everything I just said, right? Yeah, then you worry about them, yeah, because 4 points without playing, being at their best. But again, there's, my gut feeling is not great when it comes to Manchester City and the way they're playing in general.
It's just different now. That's what it is. They're not playing great right now. They've had a poor stretch of results. They got back to winning ways today. Could have made it a lot easier than they eventually did. But hey, there's no diagrams and a scorecard. They won the game. They get the 3 points. Does it really matter how, from that perspective, right at this moment? Yeah, you want to play better, but they didn't. Elsewhere, Brentford beating Burnley by 3-1, all 4 goals in the last 9 minutes of that one. What about Sunderland beating Bournemouth 3-2 and Sunderland up to 4th? Right now, it seems to all be about Chelsea against Arsenal tomorrow. An Arsenal win and they go 7 points clear at the top. A Chelsea win and they move to within 3 points of Arsenal and above Man City. Full reaction to all the games tomorrow. 22 and a half minutes we managed on Manchester City 3, Leeds United 2. I don't think that would have been possible if City had gone on to comfortably win this match like they should have done when they were 2-0 up at half-time. Bye for now.